You know, more than 70% of our planet is water. It's this massive space for everything: trade, resources, and yeah, even conflict. But that begs the question, right? Who makes the rules out there? Well, today, let's dive into the incredible legal framework that governs pretty much the entire ocean, the law of the sea.
It really all boils down to this one simple but incredibly deep question: who actually owns the ocean? For centuries, this was one of the hottest issues in the world, sparking endless debates and, yes, even wars.
So for the longest time, you had these two big ideas just clashing. On one hand, you had Mare clausum, the closed sea. This was the belief that powerful nations could just, draw lines on the map and say, this giant chunk of ocean is mine, just like it was land. But then you had the total opposite, Mare liberum, the free sea. And this was the idea that the oceans belong to everyone, a global commons, totally open for trade and travel.
So after years and years of negotiations, the world finally got together to hammer out a solution. The UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, we call it LOSC for short, is basically the Constitution for the oceans. It's this landmark treaty that tries to balance all those competing interests and create a real rulebook for how we all use our shared waters.
So to understand this whole thing, our journey has to start right where the land meets the water, right at the coast. This is where a nation's power is at its absolute peak. The very first zone we run into is called the Territorial Sea. The easiest way to think about this is as a literal extension of a country's land. We're not just talking about control here, we're talking about full-blown sovereignty.
So how far out does that power go? Well, the convention set a really clear limit, up to a maximum of 12 nautical miles from the coast. Now that might not sound like a lot, but this number was a huge deal, a major compromise that settled arguments that had been going on for generations.
And this is absolutely crucial to get. Within those 12 miles, a country's laws are the law of the land, or, well, the sea. They have total sovereignty over the water, the seabed, what's underneath it, and even the airspace above, the whole shebang. But, and this is a huge but, there's a catch. It's called the right of innocent passage. Basically, foreign ships, yeah, even warships, can sail right through as long as they're not causing trouble. Not threatening the peace and security of that coastal country. All right, let's keep moving further out. Once we get past that 12-mile line of total control, we enter a much, much bigger area. And this is where things get really interesting, economically speaking. This quote right here, this was a game changer. Back in 1945, President Truman basically announced that all the resources on the U.S. continental shelf, that natural underwater extension of the country, belonged to the United States. And that one single move kicked off a global gold rush, with countries all over the world scrambling to claim their own offshore resources.
That whole idea eventually grew into what we now call the Exclusive Economic Zone, or EEZ. And the key phrase to remember here is sovereign rights. See, it's different from the sovereignty in the Territorial Sea. This isn't about controlling the space itself, it's all about controlling the stuff in it, the resources.
And the EEZ is absolutely massive. It can stretch out up to 200 nautical miles from the coast. Just think about that. It gives coastal countries exclusive control over just a staggering amount of ocean, and all the wealth that comes with it.
So right here you can see the big trade-off, the central compromise of the EEZ. The coastal state gets the exclusive, sovereign right to do whatever it wants with the natural resources. We're talking fish, oil, gas, setting up wind farms, you name it, it's theirs. But other countries still get to enjoy the high seas freedoms of navigation and overflight, so they can sail their ships and fly their planes right through the EEZ, as long as they don't interfere with the coastal state's resource rights. Okay, so what happens when we go beyond that 200-mile limit of the EEZ? Well, now we're entering what most people just call international waters. The law of the sea has a specific name for it: the high seas. This is the real global commons. It's where that old idea of mare liberum, the free sea, is still alive and well. This vast area belongs to no one nation. It's open to everybody, whether your country has a coastline or is completely landlocked. Article 87 of the Convention spells it all out. These are the core freedoms of the high seas. Every single country has the right to sail its ships and fly its planes. They can lay down submarine cables and pipelines, build artificial islands, do scientific research, and of course, they have the freedom to fish, though there are some conservation rules that apply.
Okay, let's take a breath and put this all together, because it's a lot. This table really gives you a great snapshot. So, you've got the Territorial Sea. Boom. Full sovereignty for the coastal state. Other ships, they can pass through, but that's it. Then you move out to the EEZ. Here, it's a split deal, right?
The coastal state gets all the rights to the resources, but other countries can still sail and fly through. And finally, you hit the high seas, and it's open season for everyone. All states share the same broad freedoms. It's actually a pretty brilliant, layered system when you see it laid out like this.
So we've talked about the water itself, but what about the ground way, way down below it, thousands of feet deep? Well, that's the final frontier of our journey into the law of the sea.
This is just a fantastic moment in history. In 1967, Malta's ambassador, a man named Arvid Pardo, gets up in front of the UN and pushes this truly revolutionary idea. He says that the deep seabed, the part beyond any country's control, shouldn't be a free-for-all. Instead, it should be considered the common heritage of mankind, a shared inheritance for all of us.
And that incredible idea made it into the law of the sea. The deep seabed beyond any national claims is known simply as the area. All of its mineral resources, and we're talking about things like polymetallic nodules that are just packed with valuable metals, can't be claimed by any single country. They belong to all of us.
Now, to manage this shared heritage, the convention did something really unique. It created a brand new organization, the International Seabed Authority, or ISA. You can think of the ISA as a global caretaker. Its job is to regulate any future deep seabed mining, and, this is the really important part, to make sure that any money or benefits from that mining are shared fairly among all nations for the good of all humanity.
Now, this Constitution for the Oceans was an amazing achievement of the 20th century, but now it's got to face the challenges of the 21st.
The thing is, the law of the sea can't just be some dusty old document. People call it a living treaty, meaning it's a framework that has to be constantly reinterpreted and adapted to deal with new stuff, things its original writers could never have imagined, from deep-sea genetics to the massive impacts of climate change.
I mean, just think about this for a second. This entire system we've talked about, all these zones, they're all measured from a country's coastline. So what happens when sea level rise moves that coastline? Or worse, for some low-lying island nations, what if it disappears completely? Do their rights to the ocean shrink or just vanish along with their land? The treaty doesn't have an answer for that, and it's one of the most pressing legal questions on the planet right now.
And all of this leaves us with one huge, vital question. This whole intricate system, this amazing balance of rights and responsibilities, it was designed for the world of yesterday. But as we look ahead to a future with rising seas, unbelievable new technologies, and more competition, is this Constitution for the oceans really ready for the oceans of tomorrow?